Thank you all for coming and for connecting, especially to my students and other guests as well. And we are welcoming today a Polish poet and musician who found time in his busy schedule to join us for a short meeting today. And I think Yossi will present Grzegorz Kwiatkowski with a little bit more detail.
Hello. Thank you, Dorota. So it really is a pleasure, and a personal pleasure, not just a professional pleasure, to welcome Grzegorz to the University of Haifa, this time virtually, but we already have fantasies that might be even considered to be plans to look forward to an actual in-person embodied visit in the not too distant future. For now, this was a really nice way to begin to consolidate a relationship that has both personal and professional dimensions and has had both personal and professional dimensions for me since Grzegorz reached out to me and introduced himself however long ago. I guess it must have been I didn't look back on my emails, but it feels like it's been a couple of years that we've been in touch.
It was beginning of pandemic, yeah, right.
Beginning of the pandemic.
So it was kind of 2 years ago, yeah.
I will be curious to hear more about the background of that outreach on your part, because I think that's got to be an interesting story too. But Grzegorz reached out to me. Then I didn't recognize his name, but it didn't take too much Googling to realize that the person who was writing to me about issues relating to Jewish history was an accomplished poet, and for me, even more delightfully, an accomplished musician. And so our connections, in a way, I think we've probably spent more time going back and forth over musical interests than
because Yossi is a great musician and he's got a great band, and it's a very important thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like a schoolgirl here, you know, getting a rock star is praising my cover band, but
I don't agree.
It's very exciting. I have a kind of a more formal biography that I just want to read to you because it's so impressive and I don't want to miss anything. But give me 1 second just to share a desktop for a moment with you so that you can see a couple of things that I want to tell you about. First of all, just apropos Grzegorz being a rock star, I think the definition of a rock star has to be that your records get reviewed in Rolling Stone magazine. So we're not I guess some rock stars get bad reviews in Rolling Stone magazine, but Grzegorz band Trupa Trupa just got a fantastic review in Rolling Stone, and the review came out in the January 12th issue. I'm going to just right away send in the chat the link so that you can all have a look at this glowing review. Of course, not now while you have the rock star in the room, but later you catch up and see who you were just with. There's a lot of buzz around the video that's featured at the top of the webpage version of the Rolling Stone review. It's a video, I saw this one and I saw the Twitch video. Was there a third one produced as well, or are those the two on this album?
Yeah, there were 4 of them and they were all produced in Bay Area. They are, because we can see here Bay Area.
Right. Yeah, they're beautiful visually. So and maybe he'll tell us at some point about how the visual side of the art came in, because, you know, we know he writes amazing music and lyrics and poetry, but these are also very interesting and arresting to look at as video art. So this is, and on the left side of my screen, you're seeing the cover of a very recently published collection of poetry, authored by our guest and translated from the Polish by a very highly acclaimed translator from many languages. An astounding figure in his own right is, I think it's fair to say, Peter Constantine, who teaches at the University of Connecticut. And these are, they've been described as kind of haikus of genocide. And I watched the book launch event in which Grzegorz spoke about having written at least some of them, if not all of them, on an old Nokia cell phone, punching out the letters one by one. And they really feel like they've been distilled in that way. So I'm going to stop the share, which sounds almost like stop the steal to an American's ear at this point. But as we would say, lahavdil, and we make many distinctions between the two. I want to just read you quickly this amazing paragraph that sums up some of his accomplishments. Our guest was born in 1984, has authored several books of poetry revolving around the subjects of history, remembrance, and ethics. It says here he's a member of the psychedelic rock band Trupa Trupa. To the best of my ability to tell, he is the leader of the band and the writer of its, at least the lead writer of its songs, but he can be modest and correct me if you'd like. He has been a beneficiary of numerous international literary programs, artist in residence in Vienna, and Styria, artist in residence in Graz. He has co-hosted a workshop called Virus of Hate at the University of Oxford, and has lectured at the universities of California, in Berkeley, Stanford University, Johns Hopkins, University of Chicago, JTS, Cambridge, Ted Hughes Society, University of Texas, and also at the Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw. Now we can add to his bio at the University of Haifa. He's a member of the European literature platform, Versopolis, and has been a guest at international festivals in Oslo and elsewhere. His music and literary works have been published and reviewed in The Guardian, Modern Poetry and Translation, CBC, Pitchfork, the LA Times, Newsweek, Billboard, Spin, Chicago Tribune, Times, NPR, BBC, and KEXCP. Yes, and his band is, are you already on the US tour as we speak, or you're still in Poland about to?
Yeah, we are going to US for 4 weeks. Yes, we are preparing right now.
Preparing for a US tour. I hope the T-shirts are already being printed.
Yeah,
it looks very exciting.
Yeah, but it will be very hard to be because of course, because of war in Ukraine. So it will be, everything changed for us in Europe, or because I don't want to say, but for us, everything changed suddenly. So the times are really very hard, but in some very strange way, they really resonate with this dark art. So I wouldn't expect it, and it's not a good surprise. But that's how things are. And
the tour will go on, though, will it not? You're planning to go.
We are going, of course. If Putin will invade Poland, we will not come. But I hope he will not. But everything is possible right now. So 1 month ago, I would just laugh from this kind of a perspective. But now everything is possible. But yeah, we are going to USA. I hope so.
Okay. I mean, so I apologize if I was too happy to receive you and too enthusiastic. Given that we're talking about genocide and all of that, I should probably be a bit more glum.
No. I think that kind of a cheerfulness and happiness and joyfulness is more important than ever. So I think that the power of optimism should be as big as ever.
it's not I wasn't planning to ask you already now my first question, and it wasn't my first question, but maybe it's your response begs the question: how do you do a rock concert with songs about genocide or fascism or whatever? Maybe I missed the boat because there's all kinds of rock music that's, I don't know, heavy metal, death metal, and things that I'm not familiar, that don't make people happy. But what do you, when you show up to give a show, do you think about making the audience sad, to think about the issues? Do you like it when people dance to a song that is about a genocide or an anti-fascist hymn? How do you put together entertainment? A rock band has to entertain, I should think, at the end of the day, and the message of your art.
The point is that Trupa Trupa band is a democratic band. It's got a democratic structure, which is really rare in the rock and roll world and in the music business. And we've got 4 different people on the board, 4 different personalities, and I'm not a leader. I sing, but there is another singer. I compose, but everyone is composing. And the message of my focus, and my impact to the band is that it's pretty similar to the poetry, but it's not that we've got one profile, for example, anti-fascism profile or historical profile. I think that the Trupa Trupa has got a lot of different layers, and the ideal situation is when the listener and the reader and the audience is deciding about the real narration. And I really believe that it's happening in the way that someone can read our music through history, and someone can read it through Second World War, and someone could read it through the modern history, and etc. Or someone could read it and listen to it through his personal private stuff. So I think it's very open for a listener, but of course my idea of this music is as you mentioned, about that it's about in some way fighting with evil forces. But I guess we shouldn't forget about beauty and about art, in the way that utilitarian role of art is very important. But I think that art is really something, delicious, great, beautiful, nice. You know what I mean? We shouldn't, even in these dark times, we shouldn't forget about joyfulness of art, about joyfulness of sounds, about some mystical, spiritual, great things that are happening with us while we are listening to classical music or to psychedelic music or to jazz music. So the audience is making what they want to do always. I am dancing and jumping on the stage because there is no other way. I'm very, in some way, shy person. So for first 5 years of a band, I didn't say anything, literally anything. I just went on the stage. I didn't say even hello. I was just playing, and I didn't say goodbye. And people thought that this is my idea, that I'm making some theatrical stuff by not saying anything. But of course, I was super stressed and shy. But for a few years, I started to watch. I was observing my legs, and suddenly I saw that my left leg started to move. And then I said, all right, so my body should be the real director of this show. So I started to listen and to hear of my body, and this body started to jump, to dance. And then these shows were 10 times better, because the music really were inside of me, and it was a real narration of a music, not of ideology, but of a real music. But of course we are really, we are from city of Gdańsk, city of solidarity, city of Lech Wałęsa. So it's very, very, it's a city with a good traditions when you will think about democratic issues.
What are you? Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if shall we move to poetry from music, or you?
Not yet. Already so fast.
No. So please,
So just in one more minute on this music, I'm so fascinated by it. How much crossover is there in your audience between the readers of your poetry and the listeners during your music? How many people do you think show up for a Trupa Trupa show because of your poetry? How many do you have any sense of whether the flow is more from the band to the books or from the books to the band? And what does a show look like? Do the people sit down in chairs and you give a concert, and are you now telling people about the message, or are you just relying on art to do its work without such comments?
You know, very usual. I make some comments during the gigs between the songs, but I don't plan it, and I always remember that there are four of us, so I don't want to make a big stand-up comedy in some way. Sometimes I'm saying something stupid, really. Sometimes it's very to the point, but it's really very, it's really full of improvisation. But the audience is more and more. It consists a lot of, for example, scholars. And a few weeks ago we played in London, and it was really weird audience in the way that the club was packed, but there were many Oxford professors and many and after the gig we were all talking, and there were musicians, journalists, and philosophy professors from Oxford, and it was really unexpected group in the way that suddenly we were all in one place, and I think that in normal world they wouldn't meet on dark psychedelic stuff concert. But the point is that I really love to make kind of a networking thing, and I really love to make some spiritual connections and communication. You mentioned at the very beginning that I wrote to you at the beginning of pandemic, and I did it because, of course, there was a time of pandemic, and I felt very isolated, and in some way I felt useless. I felt depressed, and especially that our USA tour was cancelled. In Poland, this poetry was, that there was kind of a rave reviews, but suddenly one of the scholars from one of the Polish universities wrote a review that I can't write in the way I'm writing, because it's kind of I don't know how to say that it was kind of a censorship stuff, that someone said to me that I don't have a moral right to write about history, that I don't have a moral right to deal with the history, and that I'm kind of a cynical person who is taking the history of people who were inside of these big tragedies, and I'm doing it just to to make not fun, but just to make some art and to make an entertainment. And it was very hard for me, because my family history is a history of concentration camps, and my wife's family, my son is a Jewish person, my wife is a Jewish person. Their family was hiding near the Rzeszów in the forest during the Second World War. And there is, but anyway, even if this critic couldn't know about my history, kind of a pop censorship statement was very depressing for me, in the way that in some way I was really depressed about the situation in Poland with this art, in the way that it doesn't resonate in any way. You know what I mean? That it's kind of a very usually I heard from Polish critics that you can't deal with the history and poetry in the same time, that you can't do it. If you want to be a good poet, don't write about history. But I've got this kind of a character that if someone says to me, don't do it, I'm just do it. You know what I mean? That I don't give a fuck, sorry for swearing, but you know what I mean, that I'm just moving forward. And but after all, I reached to you, and I made this university moral art events. I co-host this Virus of Hate workshop on Oxford, and do a lot of other things. And together with you and with my friends, we created some moral art platform to discuss very important topics. Not only my books or my music. It's not only Grzegorz Kwiatkowski show. You know what I mean? It should lead us to somewhere else. And And after all, the situation in Poland also changed in a great way. I mean, about reception, I can see that there is a great Polish professor, Stanisław Obirek. He's on the Zoom right now. So, for example, I'm very thankful to Stanisław Obirek, who changed the narration about this poetry in big way, and he supported this poetry in big way, and he still does. So a lot of great miracles happened, but I think that the point is that we can't give up, and we have to move forward. And of course, we should be open on critique. It's not that we shouldn't be open on critique, but if someone is telling you that you can't speak about your family and about your roots because you were born in 1984, I think it's a really, sorry for this word, but it's a bit stupid.
It sounds, I'm wondering that, your description of the audience in Oxford sounds to me like the result, I mean, my presumption would be that it's the result of this ongoing cultivation of dialogue with academics and historians and literary figures and so forth. And it doesn't seem like it's a coincidence that Trupa Trupa gives a concert in London and a bunch of Oxford professors show up. I know you did the event there, but I'm curious also to know whether how much of that cultivation was born of the circumstances of Corona and how much of it preceded it, and is somehow was this cultivation that found expression among other places, and you were reaching out to me. I don't want. Well, let's say was the silver lining of this dark cloud, a creation of a whole new community and a new readership and a new audience for Trupa Trupa. Is this some kind of efflorescence that, you're very careful emailing and cultivation of relationships has brought about? You said you were supposed to go to the United States for a tour before Corona, so apparently the band was already doing good. And
and of course I had publications as a poet in the Western world, and before Corona I supposed to give a lecture on the University of Chicago. It's not that coronavirus changed everything, but it changed it in a big way that I really believed in a bigger way than earlier, about the big sense of communication and about the moral dialogue between countries and between scholars, intellectuals, and artists. But my experience with a connection was also connected to the tragedy of Second World War, because now it was 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I found near the museum of a concentration camp Stutthof, near the city of Gdańsk, me and my friend, we found almost 500,000 pairs of shoes, which were just near the fence of the museum. The Stutthof concentration camp was kind of a reparation center for a leather and for shoes from all the concentration camps from Europe. And when this camp was liberated by Red Army in 45, they counted it, so it was 500,000 pairs of shoes. They took in 1967, they took part of them, kind of 100,000. They took it to the museum, and the rest of the shoes they just threw to the forest. And we found it 7 years ago, and they were just on the ground, children's shoes and women's shoes and men's shoes. They were everywhere. They looked like leaves. And so we went to the manager of this museum, and we asked him, what is that? And he said, this is trash. This is trash. So we said, no, we don't think so. So we gave him 6 months for making something with it. We gave him 6 months for saving these artifacts of genocide. He didn't do anything. And then we called to Polish media, but the response was really little. And then we called international media like Guardian, CBC, etc., and the response was very weak. And it was a lesson for me that I have to communicate not only in the Polish area, because I will be lost. You know what I mean? That with my problems. And the Stutthof concentration camp was a concentration camp of my grandfather. He was a prisoner, and his his sister was a prisoner, and he was a broken man. He was a man with a trauma after the Second World War. And in the 90s, when I was a kid, when I was a child, I went with him to this museum, Stutthof concentration camp museum, and he went there first time after the war. And I saw the man who was totally devastated. He was shouting, crying, he was reconstructing, so for me, it was one of the biggest ethical and things I saw. I was 9 years old or 8 years old, and it changed everything for me. So this shoes issue was for me important also because of my family history, and my poetry is also important for me because of my family history. So in some way, this is my private garden, you know what I mean? That I'm trying to be the best gardener as I can, gardener of the memory, and all the issues that are connected to this tragic garden. And in Poland, very often we can see that there are people who want to make some censorships and to want to change narration about history. And suddenly I was in some way in the middle of it. But I didn't give up, and I won't.
I have several questions to you, Grzegorz, but you partly answered to them, so I don't know how to ask my questions now. I'm only afraid that part of our listeners maybe lack some kind of context, some introduction to your poetry, because some of our listeners don't know your poetry very well, apart from a few examples which were sent to them. Okay, which questions I connect now? Maybe we all understood that you touch upon difficult topics, that you write about, that your poetry is not easy to write. And by the way, I know the article you spoke about written in Poland. I also know a defense of Professor Stanisław Obirek. I don't agree with the critical article. I think that poets do write about history. Let's take the biggest poets, and our students know those poems by Czesław Miłosz or Różewicz. So this is not true that you have no right. We can later argue how to do it, but this is totally not right. The volume that Yossi presented at the very beginning, Crops, which was published really recently, I will read just two reviews on the cover of the book. The students, we all will get into the atmosphere maybe through those reviews, the short ones, and later I will ask you some questions. One of randomly chosen by some website. These poems are brutal, strangely exquisite, and unfortunately still necessary. With his words and his music and his relentless campaign of stark honesty and regenerative connection, Grzegorz Kwiatkowski is a genuine glimmer of hope in a darkening world. This is one of the reviews, and another one by Richard Deming. Grzegorz Kwiatkowski once said, "I think that we should be conscious about the evil that is inside every one of us." In his collection, Crops, Kwiatkowski taught 10 poems and sounds the depths of our darkest history. Masterfully rendered by Peter Constantine, one of our most brilliant translators, Crops reveals that the unforgettable is also the undeniable. Is it beautiful? I say it is powerfully necessary, unrelentingly direct. I say it burns. So I think those short reviews give us an idea what your poems are about. Also the title of our lecture, yes, how to fight evil and hate, especially in the context of what is happening in Europe. But let's move to it in a moment. I wanted to ask you, how did it start? You partly answered to it, as I said, because in Poland nowadays, it's it has been written, done, and talked about a lot on this topic, especially of Shoah, of the Holocaust. But as you said, it's still one can have an impression that it's still some kind of taboo, and it's still not processed topic. That there is still a lot of silence around this topic, and you are part of this process with your poetry, with your activity. But how and when it has started? When did it start? How old were you? And you mentioned partly influences, your grandpa, the family of your wife, but when did you know and how did it happen that you felt this need to write such poetry? Later I will ask you about how you write it technically, but I'm not going to ask you about Nokia, but but maybe answer first this if you can.
Yeah. I think that. Thank you for these questions. I think that it doesn't have anything to do with me as a person who is in any way special or is taking care in a special way, but it's got a lot to do with my family and with my roots. I was born in Gdańsk. I was born in the poorest district in Gdańsk. Actually, it's called Orunia, and when I was 6 years old, I moved to one of the best districts in Gdańsk. So I lost my friends, and now a lot of them are in jail, etc. Because I moved from, Then my mother was a school teacher. She's still a school teacher in the special needs school. So I always had a lot of contact with people who were treated by society in the worst way. So for me, the topics of empathy were just normal topics that every day I saw my friends with a Down syndrome, or a lot of these kind of great people, and they weren't accepted by most of society. Now it changed, not in a big way, but it's better than in 90s. But later on, I was a coordinator of Amnesty International in the city of Gdańsk for many years. So for me, the existence of evil was always very real thing. I mean that it wasn't the topic for a philosophy. It was very, very real thing. And the visit, I told you about this visit in the museum, camp museum with my grandfather. It had also big impact on me. And but anyway, I was writing a poetry. I loved poetry by Czesław Miłosz, who is a big literary master for me. And but I read a lot of poetry of Edgar Lee Masters and Walt Whitman. I love especially Edgar Lee Masters, and he wrote the Spoon River anthology. And so I took a methodology from him, and I started to write in a bit same way. But of course, I was writing about the Polish landscape. So I in some way, some unconscious way, I wrote kind of a genocide Spoon River anthology, but I didn't know what I was doing. And one time ago, many years ago, I wrote the poem Mr. Cogito, and the great Polish scholar who is dealing with genocide, Holocaust, with Jewish history, Joanna Tokarska-Bakir. She helped me as a first person in Poland. She took this poem to one of the very important Polish journals, and she started to, in some way, protect me, or she was my guidance in this world. So she was a first person who told me that this is very important what I'm doing, that this is crucial, important, and I shouldn't leave these topics. So she was very important for me in the way that I started to write in more direct way, and I wasn't afraid of writing about genocide in the poetry. And so year after year, I was I was trying to, I was going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'm not an expert. The intuition is most important thing, but you know, it's now I'm a father of 3.5 years old son, Franciszek Lev, and I'm searching for a kind of a positive, optimistic program in my life. And I thought that I'm really close to this, to finding this holy grail, this great, positive, optimistic program. But suddenly the war in the Ukraine started, so I'm far away from the optimism. But I'm fighting for optimism. I'm fighting for joyfulness. I'm fighting for not giving up. And I really believe that dark art can produce light. So by dealing with the history, by dealing with the demons of history, and now we know that dealing with the demons of modern history, of modern world, we can make a change. And my program, I've got one little program that firstly we should search for an evil not outside of us but inside of us, even if this evil is really small. You know, for example, I would even say art of lying. You know, who is not lying? Almost everyone is lying. You know, so you know, if every day we'll try to lie a bit less, or if we'll be a bit nicer to each other, or you know, if we will know that we are potential murderers and potential very big evil figures, I think that because of this state of moral conscious, we can protest against outside evil in a biggest way, in a more conscious way. But I don't want to say that I succeed, that I am the person who knows how to do it, because every day I'm doing bad things. But after all, I think that every day before I'm going to sleep, I analyze this stuff, and I know what I made in a bad moral way, and I'm trying to not make it another day. So I think that, you know, every one of us have to choose, you know, non-stop every day, and I think that's the point, to choose in the best moral way, which is of course impossible, but I think that trying is here succeeding.
It's a really nice and great explanation. I still, as you put it, it seems that you are looking for good, for sparks of good and happiness. But then, when it comes to the point, you see only the dark sides. This is what you put in your poems. So I later maybe will ask you about. Generally, is Polish landscape contaminated in a way? I've just seen a year ago an exhibition in Polin Museum, exhibition by of Sasnal, Wilhelm Sasnal. I don't know if you've seen it. When he presents in his pictures Polish landscape. I can show you if you want it at some point of time. When he presents as the Polish landscape as some kind of contaminated. Everything you look at. Let me just show you for a moment. So
this is great exhibition, and he's a great artist.
Yeah, if I could share the screen just for a moment, so everybody will know what I'm talking about. This is an exhibition which is already closed. It was a short, 1 year, half a year exhibition. Wilhelm Sasnal is a great painter, well known, and here in the summer of 2016, I took a several-day-long bicycle tour of, among others, Majdanek, Sobibor, Belzec, all the places of concentration camps. Here is simply the simple barns for pigs. You see a lot of them also in Israel, but once you see it as a Polish landscape, you immediately connect, the imagination connects to the certain pictures, cabbages, but it reminds us also, might remind us something else, those cabbages of forest, or okay, this is already an interpretation. So why I'm referring to this exhibition, it shows in a way that the Polish landscape is contaminated by those memories. And do you feel the same? And this is how it gets an expression in your poetry? Does it come from there? That everywhere you look at, everything is somehow connected to those awful events. Remember, I talk about Shoah, but it doesn't have to be only Shoah.
I think that Polish landscape, I would say that Polish psychological landscape is contaminated with hate and with trauma and with big ability to hate each other. There is this kind of a term called Homo Sovieticus, and it's I think that in some big way people in Poland are still in the state of Homo Sovieticus, and I think that, you know, for example, anti-Semitic issue. You know, I think that, you know, most of people in Poland are anti-Semitic, and not only right-wing people. I think that left-wing people also, but they just don't realize that they are. You know, but if you will just dig deeper, they are also anti-Semitic. And I think that most of Europe is still very anti-Semitic, but it's just covered with you know, for example, obsession of Austrian and German people on the human rights in Israel and Palestine. You know what I mean? Or a poem by Günter Grass about nuclear ship and a nuclear Israeli weapon. You know, I think that he should be the last person who would write this kind of a poem, but he did as member. But the point is that I think that in some way, history of human beings is a history of hate, and you know, it's. But on the other hand, there are some that, you know, most people I know are in Poland. They are not open-hearted, but they've got their reasons not to be open-hearted. You know what I mean? It's very complicated, and it's very complicated to make a communication bridge. It's very complicated to not saying to someone, you are a bad person, you are anti-Semitic person, you know, you should behave in a better way. People don't like to be preached. People don't like to feel bad. So the point is how to make a connection, communication with people who, for example, are anti-Semitic, or who even make claims that there was no Holocaust. I know it's super hard, but the point is that how to make some space for goodness. But of course, memory is very important. So I don't want to say that we should forget about the past and try to find some great aspects about modern world, and because of course we should build on the history. But I just wanted to say about these unexpected things. For example, what is going right now in Poland, and that millions of people in Poland are helping people from Ukraine, and it's totally unexpected. I wouldn't expect it, and it's happening in a mass scale. It's not a so it's kind of a miracle of goodness. Of course, the question is how long it will long, but this is something that maybe will show these people that, you know, that we are all people, that we are all people, and we are all human beings, and you know and this fight of, you know, president of Ukraine who is a Jewish person, and who is like a David who is fighting with Goliath, with Vladimir Putin. It's almost like a Hollywood story. It's Bible or Hollywood or even science fiction story. You know what I mean? It's like like from comics, but it's true. So we suddenly we woke up in new times, and I think it can give us a lot of opportunities to find some moral bridges. And of course, we should talk about Jedwabne, about pogroms, about genocide, about Ukrainian and Polish people who were contributing in killing of Jewish neighbors. Yeah, of course, these are all very important topics, and we shouldn't forget about them. But I think that we should always think about this positive aspect, that you know that we can't just wait for someone who will say mea culpa, I am guilty, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen. anytime, really. And the same thing, of course, should happen, I guess, in the future with the Russians people. You know what I mean? In the way that now I know that everyone is hating Russia in the way that, you know, and I know why they are doing it. They are doing it because they are afraid and because of solidarity with Ukraine. But I'm against hating. You know what I mean? I'm not happy. You know, if 150 million people has got a face of Vladimir Putin, and of course, after all, I think that there should be a place for understanding Vladimir Putin. You know what I mean? How come, you know, that he's behaving like that? You know, and he's not a, you know, I'm totally opposite the demonization of evil. You know what I mean? I think that there are no mysteries. We just got lack of communication and lack of knowledge, and I think that art can help with this communication stuff. Sorry for this monologue, because I'm just your questions were great, but then I'm saying and saying and saying, and I just think, wow, it's really nice what you're saying, Gregory, and this is the beginning of big monologue, so watch out.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful that we invited you to talk. We are not here to talk. So we would like to read at some point of time something. Yossi, do you have?
I have crops here, so why don't we let Grzegorz make a selection, and read something, and I'll find it in my copy and read it in English.
Great. Great. So, Grzegorz, what do you want to read to us?
Maybe we could read two poems which are kind of opposition to each other. First is Szymon Srebrnik.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And second is Ernst Junger.
Okay.
Just give me a second for a Polish version. I've got it. So we'll start with Polish, then you will read English, and I will read Polish, and you will read English, right?
And you begin with?
Szymon Srebrnik, with Polish. Szymon Srebrnik. Nie wierzyłem, że ja przyjadę jeszcze do Polski, do Chełmna i będę stać na miejscu, gdzie mnie zabili. Nie, nie, nie.
I didn't believe I would return to Poland ever again, to Chełmno, and that I would stand where they killed me. No, no, no.
Ernst Junger. Wojna zawiodła mnie. Nowoczesna wojna. Nie spełniła moich oczekiwań. Nie dorosła do swojego literackiego modelu. Na przykład nie było na niej koni.
War has let me down. Modern war has not met my expectations. It didn't live up to its literary ideal. For example, there were no horses.
So this is this kind of stuff which is almost funny in its tragedy. You know what I mean? It's full of obscene and even if you were reading it right now, Yossi, this poem, Ernst Junger, I was hearing it and couldn't believe that he said what he said, because these are words of German writer Ernst Junger.
I was wondering how much of these fragmentary phrases and crops you lifted right from the page of a newspaper article or a book, and how much you've imagined.
Most of the stuff is the real stuff, and of course I'm making a sculpture, artistical way, but in a very delicate way. So I in most cases I don't change any context. But I'm just clearing the space around this this message. So I'm sure that Ernst Junger wouldn't be happy with this kind of montage. But you know, he said that, and I love his war diaries, but I don't love his biography and his moral aspects. So Yeah.
But what about the poems of people who have died and are speaking now from the other side? These are your.
It's pretty the same in the way that actually I've got now I found my grandfather camp diaries, and so there is a new poem called Grzegorz Kwiatkowski, because my grandfather was Józef, and there is a new poem which is you know, these are his words with micro changes, but I'm just building the musical side of it by leaving down the not bad elements, but not useful elements in this poetic narration. Yes, so this is kind of a, you know, it's not only art of sculpturing and art of montage, but it's art of choosing what is right, and you choose these scratches, these little things, little objects, and you're creating the landscape. So you know, there are thousands of pages with diaries and with but you have to choose, you know, these 3 or 4 lines which are crucial in the narration of the process of genocide. So I just wanted to say it's not so easy in the way that you're taking something and then you think, all right, this is it. And
collage is a piece of, it's an art. So
yeah.
We can maybe create some new literary genre, literary collage in a way. But no, it's not collage. There is a lot of creation of yours, because I read some of other poems.
And Buja Weiner, what's the story?
Yeah, this is unfortunately the real story. So it's you know, it's most of this stuff is the real stuff, and it's still shocking for me.
So I'm sorry to be so dense. You know, I'm not a literary person. I'm just an historian. But when you have so many poems, Buja says, "I was 6 when I was killed," and the Shimon Shrebnik that you just read, I stand where they killed me. Are these survivors who have speak as from their experience as people who have been killed but live to tell the tale of how they were killed? Is this figurative?
This is a method, as I said, this is a methodology of Edgar Lee Masters and Spoon River anthology, when dead people are saying about their life. In some
yes, I had to read it in high school. Every good American has to read Spoon River anthology in high school.
So it's a epitaph way about their lives, but it's complicated because, for example, Szymon Srebnik said in metaphorical way that he died. Psychologically died, but this is the part of Shoah by Claude Lanzmann, actually. So there are a lot of scratches from Lanzmann masterwork, masterpiece. There are different elements, but there are also just landscape poems without people. They are saying about, you know, for example, the poem Graves. Corpses were thrown into the well, buried in pits, dugouts, in horses' graves, etc., etc. So, and then the children pulled them out from the well, from the pits, from the dugouts, and from the horses' graves. So there are a lot of things inside of every book, and it's all to make kind of a genocide landscape of a genocide built with many voices. We have voices of perpetrators, we have voices of people who were murdered, we have voices of people who observed. And in my opinion, it should work as kind of as a moral machine, as a something that could lead to a moral awakening, in the way that maybe you could ask yourself, how could I behave in such situation? And of course, it's impossible to give an answer. But if you're trying to have an answer, I think this is the start of a moral machinery in your life. That if you're thinking, how could you behave, then your morality is once more, on. So
it's a perfect moment to read another poem, if you agree. The one we spoke about before, because in this particular poem, we have exactly this moral question. So but here we'll ask Yossi to read it. No, Mr. Cogito?
You'll share your screen, Dorota?
What? I did share.
Oh, did you share it? Maybe I'm not seeing it for some reason.
Do you see the poem on the screen?
Now I do. I have to make it a bit larger.
Maybe before you start reading, I want to just
you're gonna have to scroll. Am I seeing the end of the poem at the?
No, I will scroll. Don't worry. I just wanted to explain that Mr. Cogito is a known figure in Polish poetry. Maybe Grzegorz, we would like to a little bit elaborate, Mr. Cogito.
Mr. Cogito there was a great poet, Zbigniew Herbert, who created Mr. Cogito figure, but I don't know if he was so great as a poet. I've got a problem with his moral aspects, in the way that black and white aspects, and so Mr. Cogito is kind of a figure in the Polish intellectual world, kind of a person who always knows the best how to behave. And he is like a Übermensch of morality. And in some way, I don't like this kind of moral Übermensches. So I wrote a poem that is in some way imitating Mr. Cogito style and Zbigniew Herbert style. But after all, you will see what will happen. But it leads us to an absurd.
Okay, so you'll see.
The war is going on, and German soldiers visit Mr. Cogito. They ask him if he's hiding Jews in his basement. Mr. Cogito, because he respects the truth and will never lie to get his way, says, "In my basement, I'm hiding 15 Jews, among them 6 children, 2 men, and 7 women." A leaf of plaster falls off the wall in the hallway. A light bulb flickers off. But a black cat lovingly purrs and brushes between their legs. Mr. Cogito steps down into the basement to get a new light bulb, then twists it in and turns on the light, and stands in the window and sees the Germans taking the Jewish family away. Next, he opens the Bible, takes a pencil, and underlines, "Do not break your oath. All you need to say is simply yes, yes, no, no."
Thank you. I asked to read this poem because with my students last week, we spoke about certain topic, about a certain film by Krzysztof Kieślowski, Decalogue number 8. And I think students can connect easily this poem of yours to the same dilemma which Kieślowski presents in this film. And we had quite a nice and long discussion about it. I hope you agree.
I know this movie. Yeah, but you're talking to students, right?
Yeah, I was referring to the students. So really great. So once we are here, I'd like to ask you. You can comment on this poem, of course, as well. But we don't have an opportunity every day to talk to real poets. And, we read poetry from the books, and now you are sitting here. And this is an opportunity to ask you how the process of creating is going on. How do you write your poems? I heard somewhere that you write your poems on the, I don't know if it is still going on the small telephone, but this is not what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you write regularly? Do you write under the certain spontaneous drive, or do you think and a lot and collect materials before you sit down and put the words down. Is it a secret, or can you tell us?
I will tell about it, but I just need 2 minutes break. 2 minutes break, and I will be ready. Is it all right? Or you will kill me in a virtual way, in the way. All right.
All right.
No. So this is
I'm going to I'll pause the recording and give everyone a 2-minute break.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes break. We gave everybody break. Wszyscy poszli na przerwę, także.
Okay, to super.
Okay. Are we all here? Yeah, those were 2 minutes. Yossi, so maybe you can start recording.
I did.
All right. So we were asking. I was asking you how is your how do you write? And maybe I add another one. If why poetry, not prose? I mean, you could you could directly explain or express your message in prose. Why poetry and how you write?
I think that I'm writing non-stop in the way that I'm writing for 15 years from the morning till the night, in the way that I'm always waiting for the momentum. You know what I mean? I'm always just, I'm like a sponge or like a kind of a georadar. I don't know, but I think that the writing has got a lot to do with the hearing and with musical aspects. And when I hear the musical moment, anywhere, in the bus, in the tram, I'm just stealing it. You know what I mean? I'm just, because I love the sound. I love the sound of the sentence. I love the structure. And then I took it. I'm taking it on my phone, and I'm trying to make something with it. And so a part of it is in my imagination, but most of it is kind of recordings of the real life and the real voices. So and I've got, after all, one document, one Word document in my computer, and I'm putting this old stuff from my old mobile phone without connection and now it's kind of 5,000 of pages, and I'm scanning it all around. I mean that I'm scanning it from first page till 5,000 and then going around. So from 5,000 to the first page, and I'm doing this kind of a circle non-stop, year by year. And because of that, I'm still rescanning the stuff, these voices, these musical aspects. And sometimes I, for example, scanning 100 pages, and I didn't see great musical structure for many years. And suddenly I can see, a little fragment. And I said, all right, this is it. I've got it. So I'm very happy because of it. So it's got a lot to do with very bureaucratic methodological process that I'm doing the same things for many years. For example, I've got the same outfit. I've got 20 this kind of shirts, 20 the same trousers, 20 the same pairs of shoes, and I look the same haircut for 15 years. And I'm doing it because I want to focus not on what I will wear in the morning, but I'm all focused on art in some way. So it's kind of an obsession, but fortunately I'm very happy because I've got great family, and I've got a great wife, and I've got a great son, which is a new great thing for me. So if I wouldn't have very great ethical, beautiful people around me, I would going deeper in this genocide landscape, and then I would be kind of a Francis Bacon figure. You know what I mean? And I think after all this kind of art is melodramatic. It's almost funny in its monstrous horrors, images. So I think that very important thing is a balance and connection with a real life, real world, real people, real problems. And so my writing is this is the art of balance between big obsession and between real normal people, real great people, normal, not average, but real individuals. And why prose? Why poetry, not prose? You know, I really, I'm not a big fan of poetry in the way that, in my opinion, 90% of poetry is not a good stuff at all. From the history of poetry, I think that I prefer prose as a reader. I love Thomas Mann, Robert Musil, Hermann Broch, Hannah Arendt, Arthur Schopenhauer, who was born in the city of Gdańsk and lived here for a while. And he was born 300 meters from the place where I am right now, because I'm in the center of Gdańsk. But I'm a singer and I've got a band, and I really also love short songs. I love short songs. I love Franz Schubert. I love Winterreise. This cycle of dark songs, winter songs. I love early Beatles songs. These 3 or 2 minute songs like "Love Me Do," etc. And I really think that in some way it's most hard thing to do to make a very short, great thing, and very simple, but not flat. So I really love to try. I try to make something which is impossible, and you know, and I don't know if I succeed, but I'm doing it. This is part of my character. That I think that I shouldn't do a lot of things in the way that. But I'm doing it, you know, in the way that I've got this kind of character that really loves to the state of struggle, the state of fighting with a material and fighting. For example, Trupa Trupa band, the psychedelic band from city of Gdańsk, which is more popular in the Western world than in Poland. And people from Poland till now, they are asking me, you know, why are you doing it? You know, what is the point? Why, you know, why you have to go to USA for a tournée? If you would sing in Polish, you could be here and sing for a big audience in Poland. You know, and I don't have any good answer, because it's not about fame. It's not about money. It's about being a stubborn child, which I am till now. You know, and I've got big masters of this stubbornness, and I, for example, great musicians, as for me more important than prose and literature is, for example, Glenn Gould and music of Glenn Gould, and these kind of figures who are obsessed with their stuff, and they're doing it all their life, and they are really great in something. So sorry for this too long answer.
No, it was not too long, but I'm looking at the watch, and we should also save some time for our guests, maybe to ask some questions. Yossi, would you like to add something? Maybe before I'm not going to ask you about how much you are a poet, how much you are a musician, and is it connect? Is it the one person? Because this question was asked, I think, like 1 million times by all the reviewers. But you can refer to it maybe later. Just to our audience here, the name of your group, Trupa Trupa, it's not understandable in different languages in Polish. Trup, I mean, we have to explain it. There is a connection. Trup, it's a corpse in Polish, so it's like.
Yeah, but on the other, it can be corpse, but Trupa Trupa, it can be also like a theatrical troupe.
Yes, Trupa, the theatrical troupe, but okay, this connect. I mean, if we are asking questions, how much it's connected, this trope can also lead us already to an answer. Yossi, do you have any remarks
I
before
have
we?
well, I don't want to be too aggressive. I get if the students have questions, maybe can is there someone in the audience who we haven't heard from who would like to ask something before I charge ahead?
I just want to ask, have you ever thought about writing music for your own poems?
It's I was thinking about that, but then I thought that the good poetry doesn't need a music. You know what I mean? That it's a music. That
But-
good poetry has got a music inside of it.
I find the
So-
question and the answer mystifying because you're the lyrics. Are you not responsible for at least some of the lyrics in the and music that the band?
Yeah. But
So how do you make the distinction between a lyric that you put music to and a poem that you put in a book like Crops?
that the lyric to the music of Trupa Trupa needs instruments. It need musical layer around
You
it.
feel that?
Yeah, and I guess that my poetry doesn't need the soundtrack to it. But these worlds are really very close to each other, so the atmosphere is really very similar, I think. But
I didn't expect you to make the distinction. Someone who has on the shelf next to me, I have Leonard Cohen's collected, all of his poetry and Bob Dylan's poetry. They're all taken from the albums we know and love, but they stand on their own as poems as well.
I love Leonard Cohen and I love Bob Dylan. They are big genius and masters, but I think that I'm not sure that their lyrics are as great without music as with music. You're right that they are still very good poems, but I don't think that they are great poems.
Okay.
Without music. This is my opinion. And I think that the poetry of Leonard Cohen, written as a poetry, not as a lyrics to his music, is better than this one with music. But but they are, your examples are too good for me. I'm sorry, Yossi. It's that I disappoint you, but yeah, but you're I understand.
It's fascinating what you say.
But you're right that I like the minimalistic stuff.
Schubert liked Goethe's poetry when he had to sit down and make a miniature song.
But the main about Schubert is that the author of a lyrical cycle Winterreise was not a Goethe, but rather not so great poet as far as I understand.
You're right.
And that's why this is the great cycle, the way that he took not so great words inside and they are great with the music. So now they are fulfilled. But anyway, there are many options, many interpretations, and I'm open on it. I just can't. The answer is I can't take a poem and put it to the song, but I tried. So it's totally reasonable. But I tried and I failed.
I have two questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One is, did you write a poem or write anything about having found the shoes that have been tossed in the forest of Stutthof? Did you write a poem about that experience? And my second question is, why are you drawn to Germanic literature and music?
I understand the first question, that if I wrote a poem about shoes experience. No. This is part of me as a kind of an activist, and I'm still talking about that, and I'm fighting for that. But because, by the way, I was fighting many years for this issue, and after all, this boss of this museum, he took these shoes, he collected them. And you know what he did with them? He buried them once more on the museum ground. So he you know what I mean? He made the worst thing he could have. So now they are invisible. So this is what a great solution. So he he took them and they are invisible and they are underground. So we can't see them and they are rotting. Great idea. But sorry for the, but I didn't write about it. But maybe I will write in the way that if I will find some musical structure, I will write about it. I would love to write about it, but I always need this kind of art structure. The bold facts are not in some way enough to stand as an art, as a work of art. And the second question, I guess I didn't hear it. Can you?
Your interest in German literature.
Am I interested in German literature? Yes. No.
That's what he asked.
That's what I asked. Yes.
Yeah. I love German literature. I mean that I'm reading Magic Mountain and Dr. Faustus every year, for many years, and Schopenhauer, and because I graduated philosophy, so, and Nietzsche, Schopenhauer are this is my big love, but of course that's why also I'm very disappointed, to say a little, about what German did. I'm so disappointed, of course, about Holocaust. For me, this is kind of I don't have good words to express. This is so big disaster that this nation acted in such bad way. And in my opinion, it was not only one person. It was not only a Hitler. It was a whole nation standing against Jews. And I think that, sorry, but I will say it right now, that reaction of Germany for a Russia invasion was totally disappointing for me. Totally disappointing. It was kind of I don't have good words to express my rage, because I was really believing in their pacifistic and role in the model of Europe, but they corrupted politicians, corrupted with Putin's money, and they reacted kind of 1 month too late, in my opinion. And even till now, they are trying to see that nothing big happened. So this is something which is very hurtful for me. But on the other hand, I think that we are all in some way Germans. You know what I mean? That we can just reflect this bad idea. And of course, that we've got also bad things about us, ourselves. And what I wanted to say is that I'm really enemy of generalization, and I just did this generalization about whole nation, etc. So of course things are very complicated, but yeah, I love German. I love German cinema. I love Werner Herzog, documentary movies. A lot of great German stuff. But I'm also very disappointed for the history of Germany and for their reaction on the war on Ukraine. But it's changing in a good way, week after week.
Do we have more questions, please?
Do you think one can learn to write poetry, or is that solely a gift?
This is a great question. Really, I didn't hear this kind of a question, never ever. And I think this is a great question. And I didn't hear it because we live in this kind of bad times. But this is a great question. I don't know. I think that it depends what kind of a poetry would you like to do. In a way that if someone is saying to me that he doesn't have a voice or hearing, that I try to sing with someone, and he said, no, I can't sing with you these songs because I don't hear this stuff. And I said, no, you can do it really. Just relax and we can do it together. And in most cases, these are kind of a psychological barriers, because everyone can sing and everyone can write a poetry and everyone can do a lot of great stuff. But if you think about the poetry as a kind of a romantic, uplifted stuff. I've got mixed emotion, but I'm this kind of a Don Quixote person that I believe that there are some great artists, and they are so unexpected, so great, and you don't know from what source it came. Like early songs of Leonard Cohen or Bob Dylan, or like short stories, novels by Thomas Mann, or like T.S. Eliot, or like Larkin, or like there are a lot of great artists, but they are so perfect and so unexpected that that there is no way how to learn it, it's already, or Nina Simone, or so a lot. So when I think about my big heroes from the art world, as Thomas Mann, as Schopenhauer, as even as Wagner, because I've got a big problem with his biography and his anti-Semitism, but part of his music are, this is above everything I know. So I don't know what is the source of this kind of genius stuff. Or okay, Mozart. Mozart. This is and I really 95% of music I'm listening to classical music. So I really know a lot of classical music, and suddenly there is a Mozart, and you don't know how come. So this is a big mystery. So I will give you this answer that I hope that this is a gift. Yes, it's not a democratic answer. So I will give another answer. I hope that this is a gift that everyone can take.
So should we end with a
remark? You're here as a virtual visitor in the Holy Land, so you can bless everyone with this gift from God.
That's what I want to say.
We hear from there, it's a long distance call. Here, it's a local call, so we can be very generous with our blessings.
Bless you.
And we can end with this remark. Let's all try to write music and write poetry and make the world a better place, as your general message from all this dark poetry actually is. No?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was, after the Ukraine was invaded by Russia, I felt so false in the way that I thought that my poetry doesn't have a sense, that my music doesn't have a sense when I see this dying near the frontier of my country. And then I thought about Israel and about Palestine and about what you are feeling for many years, in the way that people in Europe very easy are judging your region, you know what I mean, from our very safe perspective, and moralizing you. And suddenly the war came near our door and frontiers, and suddenly these peaceful Europeans, from left-wing peaceful Europeans, are saying, great that this tank is blown up, that great that they attacked this position, great that this woman has got armor and they will fight. And I'm not judging. I'm not saying that these left-wing European people are wrong, but I'm just saying that reality is very complicated. And suddenly we've got this kind of a war atmosphere you've got for years. And I think that we will learn as a European people a lot from this experience, and we will be more delicate in easy judging of your region. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
That would be nice. Well, hopefully, there'll be better times for all. That's
of course.
Grzegorz, it was an enormous pleasure to host you, and I think you brought us closer to the world of poetry, also to music, psychedelic music. I hope we are all going after this lecture. We are all going to search through the internet and check and update a little bit more. There
are links in the chat. I'm sure some of you may have noticed already, but if you open the chat and scroll down, you'll see links to the Rolling Stone article that includes the very popular Uniforms video and the band's website, and also the order page for getting a copy of Crops.
Thank you. I'm super thankful for invitation. Thank you, dear Dorota. Thank you, dear Yossi. I would like to say that you're great scholars. You've got great students, and it was an honor to be. It's first Israel University I was guest of, and I'm honored. And I just wanted to say about Yossi's band. So this is great band. So you should check this band, because our cooperation started with my loving of his art. So my love to his art. So please check it out.
Well,
Okay. So
we're
okay.
waiting to open. We're waiting to open for Trupa Trupa
Yeah.
on the world tour.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you all very much. Let's hope for peace and in the world and
Keep up the good work, Grzegorz.
yeah. Thank you very much, and